I'm Retief Goosen, and this is my US Open.
I struggled my swing the last few weeks, and the beginning of the week I was actually quite depressed. You know, Fred is just on a glass of wine all the time, so maybe that's why he's like that. But no, I get going.
Retief Goosen once said something about certain players that sounded a lot like "forget him." The quiet man who never made noise suddenly named names. The Iceman who stayed calm for decades finally cracked. And when he did, he pointed fingers at 5 golfers who defined his entire career. But here is the twist. These rivalries did not destroy Goosen. They made him a champion. Goosen was the forgotten man. While Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Ernie Els, and Vijay Singh dominated headlines, Goosen won 2 US Opens and spent over 250 weeks in the world's top 10. Nobody talked about him. Nobody cheered for him. Nobody remembered his name. His own country barely noticed his first major win. He was shy, quiet, and self-effacing. He was second best to everyone, and that created tension, deep tension, the kind that builds for years until it explodes. So who were these 5 golfers Goosen could not stand? And why did their names haunt him throughout his Hall of Fame career? The stories are messy. They involve collapses, tantrums, controversies, and moments where Goosen himself lost control. But they also reveal something powerful. A man who was overlooked, undervalued, and disrespected still became one of the greatest golfers of his generation. Let's start with the rivalry that hurt the most. Ernie Els was Goosen's countryman. Both were South African, both were talented, both won majors. But Els was loved. Goosen was not. Els had charisma. Goosen had ice. Els connected with fans. Goosen could not earn their respect. In the beginning, Goosen lived in Els's shadow. After winning his first US Open in 2001, Goosen returned home expecting celebration. Instead, he found near obscurity. He was still just the other guy. The backup, the one people forgot about. This was not just about popularity, it was about stature. Els had it, Goosen did not, and the golf world made sure Goosen knew it. In 2018, the US Open returned to Shinnecock Hills. Goosen had won there in 2004. He was the last champion at that exact course, a 2-time US Open winner. But the USGA gave special exemptions to Els and Jim Furyk instead. Goosen was snubbed, public with his disappointment. That it was obvious they felt Els and Furyk were more qualified than him. Bitterness was clear, the overlooked champion was tired of being ignored. But here's what makes Goosen's story positive. Despite being overshadowed his entire career, he still delivered. Beat Els in majors, he outlasted him in consistency. He proved that you do not need to be loved to be great. Goosen's rivalry with Els was painful, but it also fueled his drive. Every time someone picked Els over him, Goosen went out and won anyway. If you are enjoying this story about the rivalries that shaped a champion, hit that subscribe button. We are just getting started, and you will not want to miss what comes next. The second golfer on Goosen's list was Phil Mickelson. Their clash came at the 2004 US Open at Shinnecock Hills. This tournament should have been Goosen's coronation. Instead, it became a circus. Mickelson was the fan favorite. He held a 1-stroke lead with 2 holes to play, then he self-destructed. On the 17th hole, Mickelson flew his bunker shot over the green. He missed a 5-footer for par. Then he yanked the 4-foot comebacker. Double bogey. Collapse. Goosen, watching from the 17th tee, suddenly had a 2-stroke lead. Goosen won, but nobody cared. Masses cheered politely, but their hearts were not in it. They wanted Mickelson. The story became about Mickelson's meltdown, not Goosen's victory. Even worse, the entire tournament was marred by controversy. The USGA lost control of Shinnecock Hills. Course setup was brutal, unfair, and essentially unplayable. The 7th green almost died. Ground staff watered greens with hoses between groups during the final round. It was unprecedented. It was embarrassing. The scoring average for the final round was 78.7. Goosen's playing partner Ernie Els shot 80. Tiger Woods openly criticized the USGA, saying they lost control. It was not how golf should be played. His win was brilliant. He made 11 or 12 one-putts on greens that were borderline unplayable. But his mastery was dismissed as a statistical anomaly, a trick, a fluke. The lasting images were not of Goosen holding the trophy. They were, of course, staffed with large hoses. His greatest victory was forever tainted. Yet Goosen stayed calm. While Mickelson melted down and the USGA panicked, Goosen kept his composure. He putted like a wizard on greens that defeated everyone else, won amid total chaos, mental strength most golfers will never have. Mickelson overshadowed him again, but Goosen still walked away with the trophy. His resilience. The third golfer was Mark Brooks. Their battle came at the 2001 US Open at Southern Hills. This tournament featured one of the worst finishes to a major championship ever. It was awkward. It was painful. It was a blurry mess of mistakes. Goosen, Brooks, and Stewart Cink all collapsed together in what was described as pass-the-parcel golf. Brooks 3-putted the 18th hole and fell back into a tie. He was already in the clubhouse when Goosen stepped up to the final green. Goosen had 2 putts from 12 to 18 feet to win the U.S. Open. Rammed his first putt 2.5 feet past the hole. Then, facing a short putt for victory, delivered a horribly twitchy stroke. The 24-inch putt did not even touch the hole. It was pushed horribly to the right. Goosen stood suspended in astonishment. This was so shocking it was compared to Jean van de Velde's collapse. Brooks himself seemed stunned, said he felt bad for Goosen and figured it was over. It probably should have been. The miss forced an 18-hole playoff the next day. Goosen won. His first major carried a permanent asterisk. Only got a second chance because he choked so spectacularly on the first. It was part of that messy, forgettable finish. And Goosen never forgot. The victory was redemption, not celebration. It was tainted by failure, but again, look at the positive side. Goosen came back. After one of the most humiliating misses in major history, he returned the next day and won the playoff. He did not let the choke define him. He did not crumble under the pressure of what everyone was saying, blocked out the noise, and finished the job. That mental toughness separated him from players who never recovered from their failures. Stewart Cink was the fourth golfer. He was Goosen's playing partner during that disastrous 2001 U.S. Open finish. Cink needed a pair to stay in contention. He was overly aggressive with his birdie putt. It passed and then shockingly missed his par putt as well. Made double bogey and fell out of the tournament. His collapse set up Goosen's chance to win. Then Goosen collapsed too. The two men fed off each other's mistakes. It was mutual destruction. Cink believed Goosen had a simple 2-putt for the win. That belief made him aggressive. When Goosen missed, the final hole became an extraordinary drama of muffs. Neither man wanted to be remembered for that round. Cink's 3-putt was the spark, and Goosen's miss was the explosion. Their names are forever linked to one of golf's ugliest moments. Yet Goosen learned from it. That moment forced him to confront his mental game. Very hard with a sports psychologist to get his emotions in check. He admitted his temperament used to be the worst part of his game growing up. He would break clubs and throw things out of sheer frustration. There was a mean streak in him, a little black thing, as one friend described it. But after 2001, Goosen installed a pressure cooker lid. He became the Iceman. Calm, unflappable, controlled. That transformation is the positive story. Goosen took his biggest failure and used it to rebuild himself. He turned weakness into strength. He became a champion because of it, not in spite of it. The fifth golfer was Sergio Garcia. Their rivalry started early. In 1999, Goosen defeated a 19-year-old Garcia at the World Match Play. It was a magnificent match, but nobody remembers Goosen's victory. They remember Garcia's appalling tantrum. Garcia looked like a super brat. After a bad drive, he hurled a shoe at a hoarding. When a fan returned it, he kicked it across the tee. Then he threw the club at his caddy, who had to duck to avoid being hit. It was a moment of madness. Garcia was forced to apologize. His tantrum became the only story. Goosen won, but he was invisible. This became the blueprint for his entire career. He was often present and sometimes victorious, but he was a catalyst for other people's drama. Whether it was Garcia's shoe throwing, Mickelson's self-destruction, or the USGA's embarrassment, Goosen was always reduced to a footnote in his own narrative. Their rivalry continued. In 2005, Garcia defeated Goosen in a playoff at the Nedbank Golf Challenge. Later, both were targeted by the IRS in a significant tax case over endorsement income. The U.S. tax court went after non-U.S. athletes. Garcia and Goosen were high-profile targets. They were linked again, this time in a legal battle. The pattern followed them for years. Wherever Goosen went, drama found him. And Garcia was often nearby, but Goosen stayed professional. While Garcia threw clubs and shoes, Goosen kept playing. While others melted down, Goosen kept winning. His ability to ignore the chaos around him and focus on his game was remarkable. He did not have Garcia's flair or personality, but he had discipline. And in golf, discipline beats talent when talent loses control. Now here is where the tension really builds. Goosen was not just a passive victim of other people's drama. He had his own breaking points. The Iceman persona was not natural. It was a mask. And sometimes the mask slipped. In 2008, Goosen made a stunning mistake. He publicly suggested that Tiger Woods, the world #1, had exaggerated his knee injury during his dramatic U.S. Open victory. Goosen agreed with the idea that Woods was putting on a show. The backlash was immediate. The golf world turned on him. Goosen quickly claimed his comments were lighthearted and tongue-in-cheek, but the damage was done. He was forced to issue a wholehearted apology on his personal website. He wrote, "Talk about putting my foot in my mouth." He said he intended to contact Tiger to explain. He ended with, "Clearly this goose was no match for a one-legged tiger." This was not just a mistake. It was a window into Goosen's deep-seated resentment. The overlooked champion lashed out at the one man who had all the fame and stature he craved. It made him look small. It made him look bitter. And it confirmed what many suspected. Beneath the calm exterior was a man who felt ignored, undervalued, and angry. Even this moment reveals something important. Goosen cared about respect, he cared about recognition, he cared about being treated fairly, and when he felt the world was ignoring him, he spoke up. Sometimes poorly, sometimes with bitterness, spoke. And that honesty, even when clumsy, shows a human side that fans rarely saw. Goosen's biggest public outburst came in 2010. It was about Jim Furyk. 5 years earlier, Goosen had been disqualified from the Nissan Open for oversleeping and missing his Pro-Am tee time. The PGA Tour enforced the rule rigidly, sent home. Then in 2010, Furyk did the exact same thing. But this time, the reaction was entirely different. The PGA Tour suspended the regulation less than a week later. Furyk was the #3 seed in the FedEx Cup. He was a big name. Goosen was not. This blatant favoritism gave Goosen the smoking gun for his worldview. He unleashed his resentment on the press. He delivered the defining quote of his career. Certain players have a higher stature than other players. Some players make a noise and nobody listens, and other players make a noise and everyone listens. This was not just a complaint about a rule. It was a bitter indictment of the PGA Tour's power structure. It was Goosen's admission that he was a second-class champion, a man who believed with evidence that the establishment did not listen to him. And he was right. Els and Furyk got exemptions. Goosen got snubbed. The pattern was clear, but here is the powerful part. Goosen did not quit. He did not give up. He kept playing. He kept winning. The system was rigged against him. He knew he would never get the respect he deserved. But he showed up anyway. He competed anyway. He proved his worth anyway. That is the mark of a true champion. Not someone who wins when everything goes right, but someone who wins even when everything is unfair. Goosen's legacy is complicated. He was unloved. He was overlooked. He was resentful, but he was also resilient. He won 2 U.S. Opens despite being forgotten. He stayed in the top 10 for over 250 weeks despite being ignored. Earned a Hall of Fame induction despite being dismissed. Rivalries with Els, Mickelson, Brooks, Sink, and Garcia were painful. They defined his career in negative ways, but they also forged him into something stronger. The conflicts never stopped following him. Even late in his career, controversy found Goosen. In April 2024, a social media thread erupted over an alleged improper drop. Someone posted that Goosen took a drop on the final hole from well below knee height. He won that tournament by 1 shot. If the penalty had been enforced, he would have lost. It shows that even decades into his career, Goosen's victories were still being questioned, still being scrutinized, still being challenged. Then came 2025. Goosen and Els were invited to the White House by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa for a meeting with Donald Trump. It was simple. Use 2 white Afrikaner golfers to debunk claims of white genocide in South Africa. Ramaphosa told the press that if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, these 3 gentlemen would not be here. Els tried to quell tension and spoke about post-apartheid unity, but Goosen went off script. He told Trump that his father's farmer friends had been killed and farms were frequently burned. He stated the violence narrative his president was trying to dismiss. Backlash in South Africa was severe. People called the delegation an embarrassment. One political supporter wrote online that he never wanted to see Retief Goosen in his country again. Goosen had alienated a large portion of his home nation with one comment. Even this controversy reveals the pattern. Goosen always spoke his truth, even when it hurt him, even when it made him unpopular, even when it cost him support. He never learned to play the political game. He never learned to say what people wanted to hear. All that honesty damaged his reputation repeatedly. It also showed integrity, a refusal to be fake, a commitment to authenticity no matter the cost. Goosen was never the most talented. He was never the most loved. He was the most determined, the most disciplined, the most resilient. The story is not about a champion who had it easy. It is about a champion who had it hard and still delivered. That makes his achievements even more impressive. So when you think about Retief Goosen, do not just remember the missed putts or the controversies. Remember the comebacks. Remember the resilience. Remember the champion who nobody cheered for but who kept winning anyway. If that story inspires you, leave a comment below and let us know. If you want more untold stories from golf history, subscribe and hit that notification bell. Because champions like Goosen deserve to be remembered for what they overcame, not just what they won.